Dear doctors, I am Dr. Tripti from medical team of USC. Welcome you to today another session of Future Ready, forever with you for future practice. Today panel discussion, that is module 5, will be on GST and dermatology. So it's my pleasure to introduce our course mentor, Dr. Kiran Godse sir. And today we have an eminent expert panel, Dr. Urmila Nischal and Mr. Sachin. So to introduce Dr. Kiran Godse, he is a professor of dermatology, Department of Dermatology at D.Y. Patil University and School of Medicine, Navi Mumbai, India. He has a 150 publications, 7 books, and 20 chapters. President of IADVL 2020, President Skin Allergy Society India, Editor in Chief India Journal of Skin Allergy. We welcome you, sir, for today's meeting by course mentor Dr. Kiran Godse sir. Then there will be a discussion on GST and dermatology. Follow at the end there will be a small talk on unmasking hyperpigmentation role of maintenance therapy. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Kiran Godse sir. So to share and discuss some pre-poll results and also share his views and start today's program. Over to you, sir.
Hello and welcome all. Good evening. This is our fifth program, and all these programs have been successful because most of the doctors are interested in practice. And what we are going to do is to learn about GST. Let us make GST simple. In fact, I am taking Sachin's line and saying that let us make GST simple. Understand GST, when to start, when to give, when to register. All these questions will be answered in this. When patient becomes client, GST comes into play. That is so simple. So when you're treating a patient, it's a patient, don't worry. But it's a client, a customer, then well, GST comes into play. There are many pros and cons, many things where you need to know when to start and when to give. But before that, we had online poll results. We asked many dermatologists about various few questions. So I'm going to share the questions and the answers, please. Next question, please. Do you feel that GST is important in day-to-day practice? As you can see, there is a fractured verdict. None of them have crossed 50, but well, 44% yes, 27 say no, and 21% say maybe. So, well, people are not sure whether to go for GST or not. So, this seminar will going to definitely tell us whether GST is important for day-to-day practice or not. So this is our first question. So we understand the ambiguity amongst the minds of dermatologists whether to go for or go not. And I'm sure here we have CA Sachin and Dr. Urmila who can give us answers to most of our questions. Can I have a second question, please? Yes. How often do I need to file GST returns? Again, monthly, quarterly, yearly, don't know. Again, there is a confusion, 29% monthly, 30% quarterly, and yearly, don't know. Well, I'm sure Sachin will answer all these questions. See, this is the knowledge of ours. We are very well read in dermatology. We know 3,000 skin diseases, but we don't know anything about GST. That's the truth. But let us find out from our CA, Sachin Jain. He is going to have a presentation after this online poll results, and then we'll have a question answer session. May I have question number 3, please? If a patient paying in cash, should I charge GST? Well, this is a question which needs to be answered. Remember, GST is GST. Well, 41% say no, yes, 34% yes, 41 no, and 18 no. Again, there is ambiguity. Well, we will be giving you the clear-cut ideas when to charge GST. May I have question number 4, please? Yeah, is it necessary to have separate forms for GST? Again, 47 yes, 27 no, and don't know. So, in fact, all the questions people, doctors, or practicing dermatologists have got many queries and questions. So, obviously, none of the answers are 50% above. What it means is, well, there is a lot of ambiguity, lot of question marks in the minds of a dermatologist. So, well, we will be having it last. Can I have a next question, please? Yeah, GST is better in what form of clinic? Individual, partnership, or don't know? Well, Individual, again question, there's a verdict 47 say partnership, 25 said individual and don't know. Well, all these questions will be answered. I'm sure you please stay tuned to this program, which is important for you day-to-day life, because you need to practice in India, you need to follow rules of India, and GST is one of such rule. It is supposed to be simple, but we find it complicated. But I'm sure Sachin will make this GST simple. Let us make GST simple. That is the motto. And patient becomes a client. That is our thing. So, well, these are the questions here. Now I request Sachin Jain to share his presentation and give us ideas, and then we'll have a question session. Over to you, Sachin. Mute, please.
Thank you so
Mic,
much,
please.
Kiran. Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. If you think paying taxes and compliance is a cost, just try to be non-compliant. Hi, I'm CA Sachin M Jain, a practicing chartered accountant from Mumbai. So today we'll have a very interesting topic, GST on dermatologist. So first of all, let's understand what is GST. GST is a value-added tax which has been levied on supply of goods and services both. Earlier, there were several other taxes which got replaced and now came with only one single tax, GST, with the mission of one nation, one tax. Our Honorable Prime Minister generally says GST as a good and simple tax. Let's see to what extent it is good or simple. So there are several benefits and reasons why GST was being introduced. GST has made simplification of tax. It has reduced compliance burden to great extent. It has reduced the tax on tax effect, and overall, it has also increased the revenue of government. So let's understand the concept of GST on doctor and healthcare industry. So apparently, GST has been is tax free on medical services of doctor in public interest, specifically been mentioned in the notification number 12 2017, where it states service by way of healthcare services by a clinical establishment, an authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. Let's understand what does that mean. Healthcare services has been defined under GST law, which means service by way of diagnosis or treatment or cure, or for illness, injury, deformity, abnormality, or pregnancy in a recognized system of medicals in India. It also includes the transportation of patients, but now it's important. But it specifically excludes hair transplant, cosmetic, or plastic surgeries. This is what our main topic is all about. Except, however, it's important to note that when it has been mentioned that hair transplantation, cosmetic, or plastic surgery is excluded from healthcare, means we need to pay tax on these services. However, there is an exception to exception. So there is an exception to exception which states, except when undertaken to restore or to reconstruct anatomy or functions of body affected due to congenital defects, development abnormalities, injury, or trauma. Means in these cases, when there has been done any cosmetic surgery or plastic surgery or hair transplant, then no GST will be levied. Let's take it ahead. To classify whether we need to pay GST on which kind of services under the healthcare services provided by a dermatologist, we need to understand the nature of services which is being provided in the eye of legal and technical aspect both. Also, we need to ensure and understand the intention of the legislature which they had at the time of providing the exemption to the doctors. So here we can bifurcate the services in two ways. One, which are being classified under healthcare services, which will be tax free. Secondly, will be taxable, which won't be classified under healthcare services. Exempted services are need-based services, where government understands in a public interest, exempt those services and no tax has been levied. However, there are few services, although provided by doctors, which are not in public interest or are not in a need factor, they are in wants, where tax has to be levied. So we can bifurcate this into clinical dermatology and cosmetic dermatology. There are challenges which a doctor face in GST, like classification of services, which of services are under clinical or which are under cosmetics, and collection of GST from the patients. In practical world, there may be other doctors who may not charge GST. So ultimately, the cost or the price of the fees will differ than the doctor who is charging GST. Maintenance of accounts, records, payment of taxes, filing of GST, and other compliances. There is a serious need in today's world of clarification to be issued by GST department regarding the taxability of services which are provided by the dermatologist. There is a huge ambiguity, a reason why I believe we have been met today here. And there is another concept in GST where we can obtain an advance ruling. Advance ruling means that we can go to GST authority and we can explain what services are we into, and accordingly they will decide that whether we need to pay taxes or not, or is there any confusion with us regarding tax treatments. So let's understand about registration under GST, when to obtain registration, how, and what are the exceptions to it. So in GST, there is a particular limit when the sales turnover crosses the limit of 40 lakh rupees when a person deal in sale of goods, and when the limit crosses the limit of 20 lakh rupees when a person is engaged in provision of services, then GST number need to be obtained. So let's understand what is turnover. Turnover means taxable sales plus exempted sales. So in our case, in case of dermatologists, taxable sales includes cosmetic procedures and aesthetics procedure, and in exempted supplies, it will include consultations and other healthcare services. But there is a one exception to it. When a turnover, which we'll discuss in the next slide. So here I have prepared a small table to understand when to obtain GST registration. Although we know now in case of a dermatologist, a turnover which crosses 20 lakh rupees in a year, we need to obtain GST number. So let's understand with an example. In the scenario 1, where a doctor is providing in total around exempted service of 12 lakh rupees in a year, and also he has also provided a 5 lakh rupees taxable turnover. So where in total is becomes him 17 lakh rupees, which is less than 20 lakh, he don't need to obtain the GST number. In scenario number 2, when the exempted sales is 12 lakh rupees, taxable sales is 11 lakh rupees, in total the turnover is 23 lakh rupees, he need to obtain the GST number because the turnover crosses the limit of 20 lakh rupees. In third scenario, here's what about I was talking about the exception. Here the exception says when a person is engaged only in providing exempted services. Here in this illustration, where the turnover is 29 lakh rupees only of exempted services, here we don't need to obtain GST registration. However, it's important to note that generally practically ऐसा होता है कि डॉक्टर की प्रैक्टिस की तो इनकम है ही है, along with there are some other income like rentals or there. So if that particular part will also get added while calculating the turnover. I had a client who is a doctor. So he had only his own practice, but recently he has also invested in a property which he has then given a rental basis. So where his overall limit, including the taxable, got crossed, so he had to obtain the GST number, and then he had to comply with all the procedures. So let's understand how to obtain GST number. It's a very simple process. You need to make an online application. The officer will verify and he'll grant you the GST number. These parts, your consultant will take care of these things. So yes, it's important to know that what do we need to do after obtaining GST number. So there are a few important points we need to take care after obtaining GST number, like we need to have a GST certificate at its place. We need to prepare and issue invoice to each and every patient. We need to collect GST, maintain all the record, file the GST return and make the payments on timely basis. It's important to know that we need to provide GST number to our suppliers from whom we buy consumables or maybe some machineries or any such things. so that we can claim the GST benefit, GST ITC of the GST paid. Now, what is ITC? We'll discuss it ahead. So here I have prepared a very simple table to how to charge GST. So GST need to be collected from all the supplier, all the patients wherever GST is leviable. So let's take a simple example. In case one, suppose I'm a doctor and I'm providing a service to my patient, which he just came to me, and it's an exempted one, which although the numbers are just of example purpose, 2,000 rupees, and 1,000 is taxable one. So I need to charge and collect GST only on the taxable sales, which is 1,000 rupees. So I'll collect 180 rupees GST, and my total invoice becomes of 3,180 rupees. Another example, if I only provide consultation, which is an exempted one, so I don't need to charge GST, and my overall invoice value will be 3,000 rupees only. So this is just an example I have prepared how our invoice will look like. Although the format is not specifically been, it's not compulsion format. It's up to you how you design your format. But it's important to note that there are few elements which are mandatory to be mentioned and to be there on every invoices. First of all, where we are into the provision of exempted as well as taxable services, we need to mention the word invoice cum bill of supply on the head of the invoice. Thirdly, there has to be our name, our address, our GST number, our state, and we need to mention the name of the buyer, the patient name, or maybe the buyer name, the addresses, and the GST number of the buyer if there is any GST number of the particular person, and the place of supply. We need to describe our services. Over here I have mentioned just an example, and here's the part HSN code. Every services or every goods are being defined under the GST, and a list is prepared and a number are given. HSN, Harmonized System of Nomenclature. So in GST, the particular HSN for the services what we are into will be mostly classified under 99. This is just an example. This is 9982. But in our case, we will be in HSN 9993. And here the GST being levied. And we need to specifically mention the GST rate and the amount. That's it. So there's a composition scheme under the GST. I'm sure you must have somewhat heard about this composition scheme. Here's some few interesting feature about this scheme. This is a very interesting scheme where we can opt for, where we need to pay a flat 6% taxes. Yes, you heard it right. We need to pay only 6% GST of our taxable sales, wherein this GST cannot be collected from the patients. You need to pay it from your own pocket. You cannot claim any ITC, and maximum turnover limit for this scheme is 50 lakh rupees. Once your turnover crosses the limit of 50 lakh, you will be opted out of the scheme, and you will have to charge. You will be classified under a regular scheme, and you need to charge 18% taxes. In this scheme, the compliances are return filing are very less. It's on quarterly basis. It's a good scheme. So here, these are the summary of what payments and return filings need to be done for every taxpayer who is registered under the GST. There are two main forms which need to be complied with. This is GSTR1 and GSTR3B. GSTR1 is the sales detail, which need to be reported on 11th of next month, and GSTR3B that need to be made by 20th of the next month. And for the quarterly and for the composition dealer, all those taxpayers who are under composition scheme need to comply, need to make the payments on quarterly basis by 18th of the next month, and need to fill a very single form in a yearly basis, GSTR4. So here's what I was talking about ITC. When ITC is actually a backbone of GST. This was a main motive why GST was being introduced, because GST ensures free flow of ITC. ITC, in simple words, ITC means whenever I purchase something for the purpose of my business, and whenever I pay any GST on that, I can claim the benefit of the GST element which I have paid. And that GST part can be used for the payment of GST which I collect from my buyer. So that's called input tax credit. So whatever we buy or any expenditure we make, For exempted supply, we cannot claim ITC of that. I repeat, any expenses which we make exclusively for the purpose of exempted supply, we cannot claim ITC of those expenses or those items. And whenever we make any expenditure which are exclusively for the taxable sales, there we can claim the ITC of that. Thirdly, there are some common expenses which we incur, which are used for both taxable sales as well as for exempted sales. There we need to claim the ITC on proportionate basis. So here there are some few questions which generally comes up. Here's the first one. When should I obtain GST number? So I hope, as we discussed previously, it will be a bit clear that GST, we need to obtain GST once our turnover crosses the limit of 20 lakh rupees. How often do I need to file the GST returns? GST return need to be filed monthly or on a quarterly basis, and payment has to be done on a monthly basis. For composition scheme, it has to be done on a quarterly basis. There is an important question. If the patient is paying, in cash, should I pay GST? Should I charge GST? And the answer is yes. Once GST number is obtained, you need to charge GST on all the taxable services, irrespective of mode of payment. If you don't charge GST on the cash receipt, it's illegal. Is it necessary to have a separate firm for GST? No. There is no need for having a separate GST, separate firm or entity for GST. You can obtain GST on your own name also. GST registration is PAN based, and you can obtain in your name as well. It's completely on your discretion. You want to have a separate firm for it, you can go for that. Else you can have your own number. I myself have my GST on my own name. Why GST is necessary in dermatologists? Okay, as such, in healthcare industry, GST is exempted. However, government has made a point that government wants to give tax benefits only to the important and needy services of doctors, which are very needful for every person in public interest. And government don't wants to exempt, and government wants to charge tax on all those services which are in the nature of cosmetics or aesthetics, or which are maybe in a luxury in nature. So in case of dermatologists, GST is been levied on all those services which are in the nature of cosmetics, aesthetics, or any beauty treatment or beauty enhancement categories. So there's another point which generally comes to clients' mind when I generally discuss to them. Is GST their expense, or will it reduce their profit? What's your saying? Okay, I'll just take it ahead. So no, GST is neither your income nor your expense. You are just an agent. You need to collect from your patients and need to deposit to government. It's neither your income nor your expenses. However, that's important to know, with the help of input tax credit, whenever you buy a machinery, let's say example, if you buy a machinery which costs around 10 lakh rupees, and you have to pay GST on that, because GST is not exempted on the sale of machineries. You need to pay GST on that. Let's say example of 18%. So you have paid a GST on that, and then you can claim the GST benefit of that. And this benefits can be used for the payment of GST which you collect from your patients. So overall, it can help you to reduce the cost. What if you don't charge GST where it was supposed to be charged? You will have to pay GST on all the taxable services, irrespective you have collected or not. In case you fail to do that, you will have to pay GST from your own pocket, considering it inclusive of taxes. Is it mandatory to file the GST returns? Yes, it's mandatory to file GST returns once you have opted in GST. Irrespective if there is no sales or zero taxable sales, you still need to file the GST returns every month. Basically, GST return filing is simply giving information to government about your sales and purchases. What will happen if you don't file your GST returns? You'll have to pay interest on delay payment of taxes, and you'll have to pay late fees also from form filing. As it's mandatory to file, If you don't file it today, tomorrow or some other day, you have to file it. You will end up paying late fees on that. How to keep patient record for GST filings? You need to issue invoices to every patient for both taxable as well as for exempted services, and you need to keep all the records with you. You need to prepare and report to the government about your exempted sales, of your taxable sales, of your purchases, of your ITCs, and you need to make the payment of taxes on monthly basis. And you need to preserve this document for 6 years. Practically, it's come to 7 years, but to understand it, we need to preserve it for 6 years from the end of the year when you file your GST annual returns. The due date is 31st December. So in practical language, we can say we need to preserve documents for 7 years. Do I need to file GST return by myself? So I had a client who asked me, do he need to file the GST return himself on a regular basis, or how is it? So I simply told him, yes, you can file it. It's very simple to do that. Else, always you can consult to a consultant or a CA for that. He'll help you for filing it. Will GST officer visit your premises? Like income tax, even there's a GST department, there are GST officers, so who may visit your premises, your clinic. Apparently, GST officer don't oftenly visit the business premises of any of the taxpayer. However, whenever they suspect or inspect any tax evasion or any such practices, any malpractices, they may visit the premises to check and verify the things. Yeah. Once I obtain the GST number, can I surrender the GST registration? Absolutely, yes. You can surrender it, subject to conditions. So here recently, the GST department has issued a clarification, which was talking about a very practical scenario, which most of the doctors come across. Yes, when there is such kind of arrangement, when the hospital keeps some retention money for the payments or in terms of their rentals or maybe overheads, which they charge to the consultant doctor. So in that also, there is no GST to be levied, because whole of the transactions, the service is provided by a consultant doctor to the patient, which visits the hospitals. Ultimately, it's a healthcare services, so no GST will be levied. That this was a recent clarification issued in circular number 32. People who take business loan, GST filing is very important. Yes, it's very important. While taking loans, there are need of several documents that we need to furnish with, and GST returns is one of the very important and prominent document to prove your income. And higher the income, higher will be the eligibility of loan. And yes, GST return is one of the best proof because it shows the records of your monthly sales. So that's a good proof of your income. GST is better in which form? Clinic, individual, partnership, etc. So on this, GST can be obtained in any form of entity. There is no specific requirement or anything there for obtain GST number. You can obtain in individual basis, partnership form, LLP, company, or trust. You can do in any form. All forms are best at its place. So there are few best practices that we need to check with. Well, in light of your accounts, taxation, and GST. So firstly, we should have a list of taxable and exempted services so that we know, or maybe our staff know, which services are taxable and how to prepare the invoices accordingly. We can quote the fees or charges excluding GST so that it looks a bit reasonable enough. Issue invoice to every patient and collect GST without fail, as we have already discussed the consequences of not collecting GST on taxable supplies. Maintain the proper records, accounts, file the GST on timely basis, else we'll have to pay interest and penalties. We need to be updated with the change in law. GST is very evolving law. In day to day, people are facing some or the other practical difficulty, and the association or the trades are going to the government, and government is understanding the concerns and they are resolving their issues and coming up with some of the clarifications or some benefits or maybe some form of clarities. We need to make sure that अपने जो भी इनकम टैक्स और जीएसटी डिटेल्स रहे वो सारी मैच करें. ऑल्दो हम इतने साल से इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न्स भर रहे हैं, जीएसटी नंबर है नहीं है, henceforth as even when our turnover crosses the limit, we need to obtain the GST number. So the details in GST and in income tax should match, because in today's world every data is getting interlinked. And for any more understanding, if you have any kind of confusion, you can always get in touch with a consultant to get the things clear. It's always to have a pre-consultation instead of facing the penalties and everything in a later phases. So that's all from my side for now. I hope I could do some justice upon this topic and could make GST a bit simpler for you today. And I hope you could get some insight out of it. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sachin. Sorry,
I think
we have almost answered each and every query. Most of the queries you answered. It was really the excellent talk I heard. Well, but there are still few questions which comes to our mind as a doctor. So that we'll be asking this thing. So in fact, this we have already discussed. Is a GST necessary for dermatologists? Yes, he has already answered. GST is necessary for dermatologists. Next, please, because there are a few questions which are there. Yeah, I mean, this also he has already answered. 20 lakhs of a turnover. This thing. Can I have a third question? Then we have got. Now this what procedures comes under GST? Here, Dr. Urmila comes into play, because the procedures, a same machine can do two procedures, one for the beautification and one for the treatment of skin diseases. So that is important. So as I do understand, we have made a list as the association president. I was president in 2020 of IDL. We have made a list, sent it to GST department, but unfortunately there's not much follow-up. But we have sent our list saying that these are the things what we will be charging GST. To give you example, lasers for hair removal, if it is done for a hirsutism, which is a condition where you need to treat, or if it is done for a beautification like a beard planing or a body hair remover or a bikini hair remover, that will come under a GST. So, Dr. Urmila, what is this? A beautification and a treatment. How do you differentiate, and what are the basic things where you need to pay GST?
Sir, so here the list provided by you comes to our rescue all the time. So what we have done is we have kept soft copies and printouts of the list which is prepared by IADVL under your guidance, and we keep it at the reception and with us. So as you said, suppose I'm using fractional CO2 laser for resurfacing of a scar which is caused by a trauma, then that comes as a medical condition. So for that, there won't be any tax. But the same fractional CO2 I'm doing as an anti-aging or just resurfacing to stimulate collagen and all, then that time it's going to be taxable because it is for an aesthetic indication. So it's very simple. So when you suppose laser toning. So laser toning for lichen planus pigmentosus is you're treating a medical condition. So it is non-taxable. When you're doing laser toning for enhancing the complexion or giving a glow, or you are using laser with medifacial or something, it is going to be taxable. So very simple. When you do a procedure for a medical condition, it is non-taxable. And when you do it for an aesthetic indication or an enhancement, it becomes a taxable condition. So when
Excellent.
sir was saying about laser hair reduction, so in the underarms, if you are doing it as a supportive treatment for hidradenitis suppurativa, then
Perfect.
it is non-taxable. So you can mention. So what you have to do is when you are writing the diagnosis, your diagnosis should mention hidradenitis suppurativa, and the treatment suggested should mention that advise laser hair reduction for hidradenitis suppurativa, 6 sessions or whatever your laser machine usually needs. So in this case, your diagnosis, your procedure suggested matches, and then when you do not charge the GST, uh, it is legal. So that is how we are doing. So when As Mr. Sachin said, that sometimes they do come for investigation, the GST officers. So this is what they check: your diagnosis and the treatment suggested, are they matching?
Right, right. Urmila, you said it correctly. So whatever is done for beautification is chargeable. Whatever is done for treating skin diseases is not chargeable. For simpler terms, so body contouring, body lifting, facelift, nose job, blepharoplasty, skin polishing, rejuvenation, thread lift, lipolysis, all these technical terms where we need to charge. But when you are treating a skin condition, acne, hirsutism, hidradenitis suppurativa, pylorus sinus, well, it is not chargeable.
So
Sachin, there is an important thing. uh, I'll come to you, Vimila. Sachin, this is important thing. One patient came doing all the survey and he said, Doctor, XYZ procedure is 20% economical at a young dermatologist, whereas it is costlier in a big setup. Because as I understand, the young dermatologist will not be charging GST, so his charges will be less, and a big institution or senior dermatologist will be charging 20% more. So this is a query. Many times people do doctor shopping, they different very this thing. So my question is, in fact, our association says that you can give a composite single charge to the patient, and you have suggested that you need to put a 18% charge separately. So what do you think about this? How do you go about it? Mute, Sachin, mute.
Kiranji, I would like to say that this was a very good question which everyone must be facing with, or a bit of challenging also. But I would like to highlight one thing which many people might have missed out: the concept of ITC, input tax credit. So even if you are charging 18% GST, but your cost of providing that services will be reduced to the extent of what GST you are paying for the purchase of those machineries or consumables or maybe other overheads which you incur. So all in all, your price and the price of maybe a junior one might be somehow in total will be somewhere competitive. It's not that your price, for example, if he's charging 1 lakh rupee, just an example, if he's charging 1 lakh rupees, because the cost of machineries or maybe consumables, what he is incurring, let's say around 50,000 rupees plus taxes, which will come around 60,000 rupees. And what you will be incur will say around 50,000 rupees plus taxes, but taxes is not your cost, as we already discussed previously. It is not your cost. And what you can charge to the patient by keeping a reasonable, I can say, sort of margin, although in doctors, I don't say it's a margin would be a good word, but being into this fraternity or CA, we generally use these words, margins or profits. So keeping a reasonable markup or a margin, so your price in total will be around 1 lakh rupees only with GST also.
Yeah, so that's
So
the
that's
advantage of using a
what to price with.
GST.
But input tax credit will play a very important role in deciding your overall costing, in deciding your fees, which will make you a person who is having GST number and make it competitive with the person who is not having a GST number. So I don't think this is a very big challenge for now.
Yeah. But that is the special people do shopping. There is one more question about the clinic pharmacy. Most of the doctors have their own pharmacy, and then there is a question whether the pharmacy will have their own GST number or it should be clubbed with a doctor, or how do you go about it?
Okay, so yeah, in case of pharmacy, so pharmacy, it seems like it's a separate line of business. They are selling some medicines and they have their own practices as well. To what ratios, both it's very subjective, depending upon the doctor to doctor and several circumstances. So, sale of medicines and pharmacy, if that particular doctor is using those medicine and issuing the medicine to the patient in the course of his in his diagnosis or in course of his treatment, that's part of the main treatment, which is, if it is an exempted one, no GST will be charged on those medications provided. When he is purely selling those medicines separately
Yes,
as a
yes.
separate business, in that case it is separate business. Sale of medicines in India is taxable, which is generally 5%, 18%, and 12%. That need to be checked with what is the GST rate on that particular medication, and GST has to be levied on that.
Yeah, right. There are a few questions coming which I'll be taking because they are important for all of us. This is one more question. The bill should be printed or handwritten, because some of the peripheral areas they handwritten a bill. So you suggest, what is your suggestion?
So as we are preparing the invoice is completely on the discretion of the taxable taxpayer. So there are specific checklist important pointers that need to be mentioned on every invoices to be qualified as a correct and a valid tax invoice. And it can be pre-printed, it can be semi-printed, and basic details need to be printed. Rest it can be handwritten. Many doctors usually previously used to have a handwritten prescription, which were pre-printed on a letter pad.
Yes.
On the same lines, the invoice can also be in the same form. Changing in time has, with the help of technology, invoices and prescription, everything are coming into computerized way. So invoice can be in a computer form. There is no such specific requirement. But yes, in a very simple way, as a piece of advice, the basic details that need to be mentioned, the fixed detail has to be pre-printed, and remaining can be with
Yes. Yes.
handwritten.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. In fact, there are more questions coming. Yeah, Dr. Urmila, you want to say something? Unmute yourself.
Yeah. So you have to save those invoices, right?
Yeah. Dr.
You'll
Sachin has
have to
told us
have
6
two
years.
copies. So
Okay.
even if
Yes,
it is
Sachin.
handwritten, you'll have to have two copies. One will be saved with you for 6 years, and the other the client
Yeah.
takes
So,
it.
so every invoice will be issued in two copies, original and duplicate one. Original will be issued to the buyer or the patients. Secondly, the second copy will be preserved by you, by the doctor. And also, I
Right.
need to add one more point over here. Need to highlight one more thing, that whenever a doctor also visits some other clinics and other hospitals as a
Hmm.
consultant,
Hmm.
so there, even there, he needs to issue an invoice. It's not only of the daily practice which he does. He need to invoice them also, maybe on monthly basis or whatever periodicity which they have set up.
Yeah, that is important because many doctors visit other area, do the procedures or lasers and do come back. So that is important. Yeah, this is one important question. Are consultations for cosmetic services is exempt or taxable? So I do consultation. I say that look, you have got a hair and you need to do hair removal or something like that. So the consultation say 1,000 rupees. So this is question by some doctor. Is it exempt or chargeable?
Okay, so what I understand is, okay, when a patient come and when a doctor diagnoses. So first of all, we need to understand. Again, this is a question of classification of services, whether it's a taxable one or the exempted one. So we need to understand this particular services or maybe the consultation is regards to a clinical dermatology or a cosmetic one, and
Right.
accordingly we'll have to give the effect.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
This is important. Yeah, Dr.
so
Urmila.
So
this
yeah,
will
so
this will
this
land up in us having two different consultation rates,
No,
right?
no.
So one
See,
for cosmetic.
he has made it very clear that if you are diagnosing hidradenitis suppurativa, that is fine. But if patient comes for beautification, then your consultation and procedure both will be charged because you are doing a consultation for a beautification of the person and not
No,
for
so
treating
that
skin disease.
so your basic consultation plus 18% GST will be the consultation charge for a cosmetic consult.
Yes. That is what's clear. But obviously, you can find out the ways that your consultation could be for, say, some acne or
Hmm.
something, and then you can suggest and then charge. But theoretically, yes, as Sachin has clearly said, if it is for cosmetic consultation, but typically, Sachin, what we do, the patient comes, we give them
Hmm.
treatment, and then we
Yeah.
advise, well, you can do XYZ procedure or ABC procedure and
Hmm.
go about it. So that is the thing we need to know. Well, there are a few more questions. We have got just last 5 minutes before you wind up. So, Sachin, as I understand, a young dermatologist now, most of the young dermatologists who start the practice, obviously their turnover is not 20 lakhs and above, so
Hmm.
they may not go for GST. But if they want to buy take a laser or buy a office or buy a car or buy something, then will GST be required there?
No, apparently GST number is not mandatory. No one can force you to obtain GST number. Okay. It's you need to check is your turnover crossing the limits. However, there's an option available कि you can obtain GST number even when your turnover is below 20 lakh. There's an option. But for any such kind of reason, maybe taking loans or any some reason, GST number obtaining is not mandatory.
Okay. And this composition scheme, which you said, which we are not aware of,
No,
which we say
we
6% for all.
yeah, I was aware of because our CA said, and when the turnover increases, then so for the youngsters in the beginning of the practice, that's a very good thing.
No. Yeah. So composition scheme is one to start with. and after 50 lakhs you can go for. Is
Hmm.
it? Do you advise Sachin that for a young doctor who is just starting practice, he wants to have GST number so he can go for composition scheme?
Kiranji, what I understand is composition scheme is a very good scheme which the government introduced and which were previously also there in all the other previous regimes in service tax or VAT matters also. But composition scheme, we need to understand few important points. Like we need to charge only 6% GST where you cannot collect taxes from any of the patients.
Okay.
That 6% need to be paid from your own pocket. However, that overall fees can be
Yeah, you
recalculated.
can add the fees.
Okay.
See,
First point.
usually when you
Second point is
usually what
you.
happens
Yeah,
is,
wait, Urmila. Let me
sorry,
finish.
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Sachin,
Second
yeah.
point is you cannot claim ITC,
Hmm.
which is one of the
Yes.
very important factor or very important feature of GST. Because what I understand, in case of dermatologists, in case of dentists, the machineries are very expensive.
Hmm.
Yes,
And in
yes.
case of radiologists and all those, the machineries are very expensive, 20 lakh, 30 lakh, or whatever. Now these days, sky's the limit. So you won't get the benefit of the taxes which you have paid. So a person or maybe every doctor need to make a calculation what kind of practice he is mostly into for now, maybe for down the line 5 years, 6 years, and accordingly he can decide okay, what option do he need to go for, where he can take help of his CA also for that.
Yeah,
He'll definitely.
Urmila.
So there's one suggestion. Suppose you have a different GST number for your pharma, then you can incorporate this. This is very beneficial. If your pharma turnover is not more than 50 lakhs in a year, then this works very well for the pharma.
Okay, okay. So
Because in
basically, pharma
pharma,
is
we
a
are
totally different
anyways
entity.
not
It's a
going to
different
buy
entity.
any lasers or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah. I understand, but we are not this because pharma is a totally different entity. So
No,
their
no, no.
taxes
So
are totally.
pharmacy in the clinic. So I have like a separate GST for the clinic and the pharma that time. So I don't have.
Right,
So
right.
that is
Yeah.
the
So
time.
that is a, okay, okay. Right, right. Well, we are almost last 2 minutes of the thing. Well, friends, I hope you have understood what is GST. GST made simple. Things are simple. When patient become client, you need to charge GST. That is important thing I said. And in fact, Sachin has made the GST really simpler one. He has told you
Yeah.
what to do, what not to do. There are many questions. You can send the questions. He will try to answer this thing. So you please keep on sending question. We'll be sending it to him, and maybe a company representative will give it to you. But this is a very enlightening talk by Sachin. Most of things are understood, but still there are gray areas. Well, time will tell us how best to go about it. This thing. But last, I must say that well, GST is part of our life. So please start living with GST and don't say I will not have GST. That is one thing I must tell all my young dermatologists who wants to wait or start. So obviously the things are very clear here. Sachin, last final remarks about you for GST. What you will tell to dermatologists, all of my young doctors?
Kiranji, all in all, see, we GST, as you very rightly mentioned, GST is part of our life. Day to day, knowing or unknowingly, we are paying GST on regular basis. Huh. Most of we only come to know that we are paying income tax on a yearly basis or maybe advance tax, but on daily basis we are paying GST knowing or unknowingly. So once we have a set of particular turnover, if we cross that, we should obtain GST number. That's my suggestion overall, because we in today's world we cannot restrict our business or we cannot restrict our practice, because
Right.
in today's world the gone are those days where people used to manage anything or that way. All things are done with. In today's world we'll have to walk with the change in technology or maybe change in the compliance or the regulatory matters, and we need to adapt that and accordingly manage the things. And yes, GST, although it's been said by honorable prime minister, a good and a simple tax, which might not be that good and a simple one, but although if you manage it, have a system in its place that can be managed efficiently and without any much challenges. And yes, also if there is any query with any of attendees, I can share a link, Kiranji, and they can put a query on that link. I have prepared a form. They can put the query over there, and my team and will be replying to all those queries if required.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So we'll share the link. In fact, all the doctors, the company representative will be going to them. So we'll share that link with them. and send the questions thing. Well, this was really enlightening and thought-provoking talk. But GST, well, please start living with GST. That is what I will suggest to all of you for this thing. Well, we have now an interesting talk by Dr. Urmila on the pigmentation. So over to Dr. Urmila for a talk on pigmentation.
No, the Dr. Trupti is only going to do that, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Trupti, over to you then.
So first of all, I convey thanks to doctors and Dr. Kiran Godse sir, our course mentor, and our panelist for sharing and have a very detailed discussion on the GST. It was really wonderful. Definitely, it benefited the practicing dermatologist. So before we end, let's have a small talk on our brand, that is 𝐊𝐤𝐫𝐚𝐽. So 𝐊𝐤𝐫𝐚𝐽, ideal maintenance therapy of melasma. So melasma is an acquired hypermelanosis characterized by asymmetric brown-colored irregular reticular macules on sun-exposed areas of the skin, especially on the face. So comparing the different patterns of melasma, it has mainly seen in the centrofacial areas, which is having 65%, followed by the malar areas, that is of 20%, and the mandibular areas 15%. So coming to its epidemiology, it is having high risk population, that is in the 9 to 50%, and general population it is only 1%, and it is more commonly seen in females with the darker skin type, and majority of the patients are in the third and the fourth decades of their lives. So coming, sharing some one of the review that is on the medical management of the melasma. That is a review with the consensus recommendation by Indian Pigmentary Expert Group. So it conveyed that establish a good cleansing regime, combat the skin stress with the antioxidants, moisturize your skin regularly, and use sun protection. So coming to the treatment algorithm of melasma, especially we are concentrating on the maintenance therapy. So intermittent hydroquinone up to 6 months, and kojic acid, glycolic acid, tretinoin, ascorbic acids are following. These are the regimes which are used as a maintenance therapy. So coming to the maintenance therapy in the melasma may be present for many years and relapse after improvement is common. The development of the maintenance regime after initial improvement would help in the management of this disorder. Majority of the patient who entered the maintenance phase, in which the treatment was given twice per week, relapsed and required resumption on daily therapy. And also, as per the Indian guidelines, a maintenance regime for long term response and is useful in preventing relapse. However, the frequency of application should be daily, intermittent tapering, determine the safety profile of the therapy. Let's focus on our product, that is 𝐊𝐤𝐫𝐚𝐽, which is commonly prescribed under the indication as a maintenance therapy for hyperpigmentation and melasma. So coming to its mechanism, it's act basically on three main steps. That is, it protect the skin from the UV rays to prevent the signaling for melanin production. It act as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, that is, it scavenges the free radicals from due to the UV rays, and also inhibit the melanogenesis process. It has 7 natural content. It is formed by the 7 natural content, which is ideal for the skin lightening. So first, very important, that is protect the skin from the sunlight, that is by micronized titanium oxide and galang ester. Similarly, the antioxidant and the anti-inflammatory by taro-white, sebi-white, shuttlecogic acid, and then licorice, nanobrite, and then similarly these components also inhibit the melanogenesis process. So coming and sharing some of the clinical evidences related to it, that is of galang and micronized titanium oxide, which protect the skin from sunlight, and it has been seen that concentration of galang in golite is 0.2%, and it is effectively show the significant skin lightening and UV protection benefits. Coming to the next evidence as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, the terowhite and the 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐤𝐷. Terowhite is an antioxidant property, and it has a free radical scavenging which is 3.7 times more potent than vitamin C, and it prevents the formation of free radicals. Similarly, the 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐤𝐷, it has dual antioxidant activity, that is bioprotectant in nature, and from the ORAC value comparing the 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐷 and the vitamin C, it has been observed that antioxidant activity is 3.2 times more powerful than that of vitamin C. Now coming to the next components, that is of nanobrite and terowhite. So from a melanin content assay, it has depicted that 45% inhibition of melanogenesis was there as compared to that of control group. Similarly, in the terowhite, in a comparative study, it has been seen that melanin inhibition was 182 times more potent than that of kojic acid. Now, in the 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐷 and licorice, so data depicts the inhibition of melanogenesis, and 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐷 is 17 times more potent than kojic acid, and for licorice also, it is 33 times more potent as compared to the kojic acid in the melanogenesis inhibition. Now coming to the very important component, that is shuttle kojic acid, and it has been aimed to make a shuttle ingredients to penetrate not only in the stratum corneum but also to get the deeper layer of the skin, and it is a unique shuttle technology in which kojic acid is encapsulated, and it enhances the penetration to the deeper layer of the skin, thereby providing higher efficacy of kojic acid. So advantage of shuttle kojic acid is prolongation of bioavailability of kojic acid, better absorption, penetration, and diffusion in the inner layers of the skin, improving the stabilization of kojic acid, showed 5% melanogenesis inhibition in the human melanoma cell lines. Now, sharing some of the other indication reviews, that is in periorbital hyperpigmentation. So it has been seen that using the product along with the laser procedure, it has been found that addition of kojic acid to the gel containing the glycolic acid and hydroquinone further improves the pigmentation of the melasma. So coming to the next, that is treatment with fractional razors. Kojic acid creams found to have statistically significant better improvements, and using the combination with the lasers and topical kojic acid was effective in the treatment of melasma. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. Now I would request our sales manager, Mr. Prashant Kumar, to please give away the corporate presentation.
Good evening, all, for the important delegates and our panelists. Yes, USV, your reliable healthcare partner. As name suggests, it's always you before we. It's our profound gratitude to each and every one of you, your family, for being an integral part of our journey. Our aim to partner is to ensure better patient care so that India can be recognized as a healthcare capital rather than a disease capital of the world. Our roots are deeply ingrained in our Indian history. So, Dr. Vittal Balakrishna Gandhi, the founder of USV, is the freedom fighter, also the member of Parliament. 2 states in Mumbai's business locality are named after our founders. We can see our first Prime Minister, Mr. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and Dr. Vittal Balakrishna Gandhi in discussion with Japanese delegation in India. Dr. Arvind Gandhi with Dr. Kashmir Funk, inventor of vitamins. Across the country, we are having 5 manufacturing plants where we manufacture active ingredients, brands and generics, biotherapeutics and peptides. USV's Integra stands for quality. Integra was established in year 2019. Integra's mission is to be a key player in dermatologics by providing products and services of superior quality that will improve the lives of patients or consumers with help of committed and capable team which would drive excellence in execution. In our product portfolio, when it comes to antifungals, we are having 𝐊𝐢𝐫𝐚𝐧 ibuprofen cream as well as lotion. In anti-acne, we are having Eritop clindamycin gel and lotion, Eritop N clindamycin with nicotinamide lotion. For hyperpigmentation, we are having Go-Lite, safe, effective, natural skin lightener. In emollients, we are having 𝐔𝐫𝐬𝐲 moisturizing cream and hydrating body lotion. So it's my honor today to deliver the vote of thanks. First of all, a thank you delegates who have logged in from different parts of the country. Mr. Sachin, the GST expert who has helped us to keep GST simple. Thank you, Mr. Sachin. Dr. Urmila Nischal, madam, thank you very much for giving real life expert opinion on GST. And Dr. Kiran Godse, sir, for special thanks to you for mentoring and delivering yet another successful panel discussion on real-time issues and sharing the learnings with all the upcoming dermatologists across the country. So with this, it's the end of today's webinar, the fifth module, which was like GST in dermatology. And wishing you all an good night and take care of yourself, and definitely we'll be connecting in next month. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.